Hi class, how you doing today? So today we're looking at section number 2 of chapter 5 on how and why air pressure varies with altitude. And so we have this figure that I sent to you on Thursday, March 19th. It's also on Canvas if you need to download it. And what this figure represents is a column of air molecules from the surface to the top of the atmosphere. So if you could see air molecules, this is how they would be distributed throughout the atmosphere. So what do we notice? We notice that there's a higher concentration of air molecules near the surface, or a higher density of air molecules near the surface. That means the same thing. And as you go up into the atmosphere, the concentration or the density decreases the further you get away from the surface. This is all due to the influence of gravity. Gravity will act on anything that has mass, and although it doesn't seem like air molecules have mass, they do, and as a result they are being affected by gravity. Okay, so if we look at the distribution of the air molecules in this column of air, what do we observe? And so forgive me for writing sideways on this, but this is the way that it's going to fit. So the first thing we observe is that gravity acts to compress the atmosphere. So gravity acts to compress the atmosphere. Okay, so then that's just a fancy way of saying that we find more air molecules near the surface because the atmosphere is compressing due to the impact of gravity. So the second thing we notice, and all of these really say the same thing, that the air density is the greatest at the surface. Or the concentration of air molecules is greatest at the surface. Okay, so if the density is greatest near the surface, then point number 3, and again, these all say the same thing, it's just a different way of looking at them. Air molecules are more closely spaced near the surface. So I'm abbreviating here. Air molecules are more closely spaced near the surface. All right, so if air molecules are more closely spaced near the surface, that means that the spacing between molecules will increase as the altitude increases. So spacing between molecules increases as altitude increases. Okay. So our pressure is the greatest at the surface. And that pressure is going to decrease as the altitude increases. So the pressure is greatest at the surface and it decreases with increasing altitude. Okay. So the question that we have then is the molecules are decreasing, the pressure is decreasing with increase in altitude. Is that decrease in pressure constant with altitude, or is it not constant? So that's the question we're going to look at next, is the decrease in pressure constant with altitude. Okay. And so that's what the next section, I'll send you an email with some thoughts on that, so that'll be coming up in just a minute. Now remember that on an email that I sent on Friday, I defined air pressure for you. And air pressure is the force exerted by the weight of all of the air molecules above you. So depending on where you are in this column of air, okay, so we have the surface here, okay, but what if our surface, this is at sea level, and what if we're not at sea level? So at Green Bay, we're at about 660 feet above sea level. What if we were up at Denver, the mile-high city? What if our surface was up here? Okay, then we can, in determining pressure, we can forget about all of these air molecules down here if our surface is here. Like, again, say Denver or so. Denver, you only need to take into account the air molecules that are above you. So obviously, the higher your elevation, okay, if you're in a mountainous state, the higher your elevation, the lower the pressure is going to be because there are fewer air molecules above you. If you live near the coastlines, so Boston, New Orleans, Houston, locations like that, you're very close to sea level, and so you are going to have lots more air molecules above you, so the pressure is going to be greater. Okay, and so so that's what we're going to be talking about next. So look for an email with some discussion on that, and I'll post this to YouTube, and you can have this as a reminder and look back on it as you need to. All right, take care.